Well, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are joining from, which country, which state, which nation. Thank you, everyone. Welcome, everyone. Happy October 26th, and thank you so much for joining us. We know Saturdays are pretty busy, so for you to take time off to join us, we are very grateful. My name is Marian Amwa, and I'm the author of Breaking Through, the Immigrant's Handbook for Thriving in the American Workplace. And I always have to pause and say American workplace. I believe that the principles, the 9 topics discussed in this book transcend location, transcend race. I believe they are universal principles. So thank you. The conversation is based on that book, the Immigrant's Handbook for Thriving in the American Workplace. I'm also the author of A Routine for Life. But today I'll be your hostess and facilitator for our conversation. I have an incredible lady who will share her story, her journey as a first generation, some might say second generation, as a first generation immigrant and as an entrepreneur. So it is my hope that through these conversations, you are inspired, empowered, and challenged to chart your own path. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat, both on Facebook and on Zoom. And I promise you, for those of you on Zoom, forgive me because last week and I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, folks have told me you didn't get to our questions. So I have Elsie on today who would help us with all the Facebook questions. And so we'll get to them and use the chat both here on Zoom and on Facebook. And if you watch it after, we know a lot of folks are not able to join sometimes. Please, if you have any questions, comments, feedback, by all means, put them in the chat and we'll get to them. Thank you all. Thank you to everyone who has given us feedback. The light, the camera topics. We say at work that feedback is a gift. So please keep them coming. So help me welcome Stephanie Amponsa to our conversation today. Stephanie, welcome and thank you for agreeing to be here today. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience? A few things, don't go into details, just a few things about yourself and a few fun facts would be great.
Great. Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me, Auntie Marian. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited about this topic, excited about your book. But yes, Stephanie Amponsa, I am the founder and owner of Yashik, which is a West African inspired clothing and accessories brand, which we'll talk more about. And as Auntie Marian shared, I am Ghanaian American. My parents are both from Ghana, immigrated here in the late 70s. And so I was born here, had the opportunity to go back and forth growing up to Ghana. But yeah, excited to be here, share my journey. Fun fact is I am a twin. So I have a twin sister who's older just by 6 minutes, even though she thinks she's my older sister, but I always say I pushed her out. And Auntie Marian is a twin as well. So I think that's fun. Twin power.
Twin power, yes.
Yes, and lots of siblings. So I have two older brother, older sister, and a younger brother. So we are 5. We call ourselves the Fabulous 5. So happy to be here.
Wow. See, I don't know why, but I have to go off tangent. Why the younger twin always feels like they are unequal. I'm 15 minutes older than my twin brother. So hey, I'm the older. So I take pride in that. But twin power. Thank you so much. Let's talk about first generation. And let me put it out there. There are so many definitions about first generation, second generation, who is a first generation. So today, please allow Stephanie to give us her definition of first generation, what it really means to you.
Yes. So good question. I've heard lots of things. So for me, it's the first generation born and raised in America, or in this case, some parents were from Ghana. They were born and raised there and came here later in their life. And so for me, it's just the first generation that's actually in America. And for me, it also means just navigating different traditions, right? Harmonizing two cultures together, which I look at both like a unique privilege and responsibility.
I like that. Harmonizing two cultures
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
embracing that. I think you just said that.
Yeah.
Harmonizing the
Mhm.
two cultures and embracing that, which is
Exactly.
beautiful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Harmony. I mean, just the word harmony just gives me peace. Just thinking about peace,
Yeah, exactly.
harmony. Like when you
Mhm.
think about like a choir, when they're harmonizing, it's beautiful. So taking the
Exactly.
beautiful part of your original culture
Yes.
or the culture of your parents, and so
Mhm.
that's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I also I am an immigrant, um, Ghanaian American, and so I'm raising kids here.
Mhm.
I have a question? How did being raised by immigrant parents and their cultural background shape your values,
Mhm.
identity, and outlook on life?
Yeah, yeah, I love that question because I think my mom always says charity begins at home. And so I feel like because of that culture upbringing, like it's everything, like it's who I am. And when I was thinking about the question, I was thinking like number one that came to me is sense of community, right? So I think that's been the biggest piece. And like in the Ghanaian culture, there's huge principles around like respect and humility. And I think that really shaped just my personal and, values, like particularly like around relationships and like that sense of community. And I think it's probably why I initially went into social work because like I always wanted to take care of
Mhm.
everyone. I think in American culture, it's a little bit more individualistic and we're a little more communal. And so I think like I know my mom said like she would go grocery shopping and then I would like give all of like the
Mm.
neighborhood kids like, oh, you want a popsicle, you want this. So it's just that very like, your elders or your auntie. So I think it really helps shapes just my how I view relationships. And I would even say resilience and work ethic. My mom used to always tell myself and my siblings, good, better, best, never let us rest till our good is our better and our better is our best. And so for me, I always wanted to be my best because that was ingrained in me. And then I think learning perseverance, right? Resourcefulness, right? From immigrant parents who, they overcame a lot of challenges to be here and assimilate essentially to the culture. And so I think for me at a very young age, like work ethic was instilled in me. And like my mom would be like, even if you're cleaning toilets, you are the best, person cleaning that toilet. So taking pride in like whatever you did. And so I think professionally that's helped me to like attention to detail, right? And like always being the best. And then also, not bringing shame on the family name, right? Like like there's not a lot of Ampansas around. I was raised in Columbia, Maryland. There's not a lot. And so like you can't bring shame on the family name. Like I just remember my mom used to always say that. So I think that and then the faith piece, right? There's such a love, a pure and genuine and consistent love for God and serving God and prayer. Like that was, the fabric of our home. And so I think for me, having that foundation of faith really shaped, so many aspects of myself. And so it's normal to hear the word of God. I mean, back then, like on a cassette tape, right? Whether in your car or at home. And then global perspective. I had a friend who I had met later in life, and I was like, "Yeah, my parents are from Ghana. I was born here." She's like, "Oh, that's so cool. You have this bicultural experience." And I never thought of it that way, but I was like, "Yeah, I guess so." And I think that's helped me to be empathetic, adaptable, because you are Ghanaian at home, right? Maybe when you step out, it's not. But I
Mhm.
think it helped, that exposure to a broader world view, gives you that greater empathy and adaptability.
Wow, you have said a lot that we could spend hours on. But I heard you talk about that sense of community,
Mhm.
right? Being instilled in you. And you said this thing about good, better, best, never rest. Can you
Oh,
repeat it
yes.
slowly so that
Good. Yeah. Good, better, best. Never let us rest till our,
never
yeah, never let us rest till our good is our better and our better is our best. Yeah, so that was repeated to us a lot. So like just that whole like work ethic, working hard. Yeah, like to be, a lot of sacrifices were made for you, so it's like you need to be successful.
Yeah. Good, better, best. Never let us rest
Yes.
till our good is our better and
And
our
our
better is our best.
best.
Powerful. Powerful. Actually, I really like this quote. At some point, I'll type it in the chat.
Yeah.
Good, better, best. Never let us rest till our good is our better and our better is our best.
Mhm.
This really coincides with one of the chapters in the book,
Mm,
which is Stand Out and Shine.
yes.
I talk about as immigrants, first gen, and even as just people, you are an ambassador. You
Yes.
represent something. So
Yes.
just doing your best and shining, and whether
Mhm.
it's pointing to your faith, pointing to your family name, not bringing shame to your family name. So
Mm,
that is great. I also like take pride in whatever you do.
yes. Yeah.
That is take pride. It
Mhm.
doesn't matter what you're doing, whether it's washing
Mhm.
the dishes. I tell that you're washing the dishes, washing a car, sweeping, just do it. Good,
Mhm.
better, best. Never let us rest till our good is our better and our better is our best. Thank you.
Mhm.
And you talked a little bit about faith and you
Yeah.
talked about the global perspective. It
Mhm.
gives you more empathy. It broadens
Yes.
your empathy to know that, I
Yeah.
mean, life is more than the four corners that you are in. Okay, very good. Let's go to the next question we have. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced growing up as a first generation child?
Yeah, this is a big one. I think for me, I think the biggest piece is identity, right? And so it's almost like I think for me growing up struggling with like who I am, right? And so it's like you're immersed in your, your culture and then like when you step outside of your home or school, like you are in another culture, but you don't necessarily feel like you fit in there. So I think for a long time, like struggling with like, okay, am I Ghanaian enough because like I wasn't, born there? Like so I think for me, the biggest challenge is just around identity. Like, where do I fit in? Because you don't necessarily feel like you fit into Western culture because the values are different from like what you receive at home. And so I think the biggest piece for me was just that identity piece. Like, I'm not American enough, right? But I'm not Ghanaian enough. And so where do I, fit in? So I think that's the biggest piece. And I would say like managing like now what I would which we would coin as like microaggressions, right? I don't think there was this huge love and understanding and knowledge of like African culture, right? And so you would get, comments. I remember someone's, making a comment about like, oh, you're African, so your mom can braid hair. And I'm all like, and I didn't know what that meant. And I was just kind of like, well, no, why would you think that? But again, I'm young, so I don't understand what that means. And then like, the foods you eat or how you may smell because of the foods, that were cooked at home, and then misconceptions about like oh, you live in a hut, or so I think there was a lot of misunderstanding of culture for no fault of people's own, right? Because media is very one-sided. So I think the misunderstandings, the microaggressions, like that was hard to navigate like in the 80s and 90s, where again it wasn't like now I think there's an embrace for African culture, but it wasn't necessarily like that growing up. Um, and then I would say the pressure to succeed. I will say I'm very blessed in that my mom was very much like, you can do and be whatever you want, but sometimes it's like, you want to honor those
Mhm.
sacrifices that were made. And America wasn't necessarily something most people dream of like coming, but that wasn't necessarily like my mom's like dream. And so for her, like starting all over. And so for me, like I just felt this pressure of like, the responsibility, like these high expectations to do really well because of like those sacrifices. And then the basic like culture expectations versus Western norms, right? So balancing like honoring, your Ghanaian values and then navigating the expectations in Western norms, right? Whether
Mhm.
that's through like how you date or church or how you respect your elders, but there are different nuances that are hard to explain, but managing that can be challenging.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So, folks, if you see my head going down, I think so much, and I'm trying to write. So please pardon me. I'll try to, but this is a conversation. I'm trying to pick the nuggets so that I don't lose them. So you talk a lot about identity.
Mhm.
Finding where you belong. It
Mhm.
reminds me of a book. First of all, when you said cassettes, if you're a Gen Z and you don't know what a cassette is, I wish I had one. I didn't know Stephanie was going to
Yeah.
cassettes are these plastic things that we used to put in cars and boom boxes and all that, and you rewind it. No, but we are outdating ourselves. But um, the identity thing is a big thing,
Yeah.
right? And it can drive people crazy. It
Mhm.
can,
Mhm.
find you don't belong here, you don't belong there. It reminds me of a book by the late Ama Atedu.
Mhm.
Ama Atedu. She was a Ghanaian, popular, very, very well written woman.
Okay.
And this book is called The Dilemma of a Ghost. And it's
Mm.
the opposite, where I believe a Ghanaian man comes abroad and takes home an African, I believe it was African American woman, where she also finds herself in that neither here shall I. So there's a part that shall I go to Cape Coast or to Elmina, where she's caught in between the two cultures.
Mhm.
Now, that was a big thing for you. I mean, and not only for you, for a lot
Mhm.
of us who have been here. Can you
Mhm.
give some, not
Mhm.
specific examples, but maybe how you overcame that, how you
Yeah.
gradually
Yeah.
overcame that and sort
Yeah.
of found your balance in the
Yeah,
two
no, I think
cultures?
it's good. I think I actually, my cousin's husband actually, because I was talking with him too, because I also told him, I was like, oh, sometimes I feel like guilty, like, I have a lot of cousins who want to be, in America and I'm here, but then I don't fit. And I'm like, these aren't real problems. But I think for me, how I kind of came over it through that conversation was around like, they did this deliberately, so you could have more, right? And so, like, don't be ashamed of that. Don't feel like you don't fit in. Like, look at it like it's all about perspective. And so, I think for me, like, changing my perspective of like, yeah, like I have the benefit of two worlds almost, right?
Mm,
And really
mhm,
beginning to think about like, how those things actually put you where you are today, and where you are today is great and amazing. And had you not had both of those experiences, you wouldn't have the life that you have now. And so I think for me, like more specifically, it was just perspective. And that I
mhm,
think also it just comes with age, right? Where you talk, I know we'll talk about it later, but like I think my favorite chapter in the book was too, where it just talks about like, being confident in like who you are. Like this is who you are. This is how God shaped you.
mm.
And that's okay. And so I think it just came with age and with time and perspective of realizing that like having this bicultural experience is an advantage that a lot of people actually don't get to have. So I think it was just perspective, changing my perspective.
Fantastic. That's great. I mean, it's also valuing your um the identities that you bring,
Yeah.
whether it's the workplace or research shows that diverse organizations that embrace diversity, equity, inclusion
Mm,
perform better. They outperform better than homogeneous organizations. So valuing the perspectives that you bring add value to whichever table that you are at.
mm,
And I will read a portion from the book that says that instead of abandoning your culture, find your balance in both cultures. Value the positives of both cultures to enrich your way of life.
mm,
Um, then there's a line that says, have you noticed that people like to hear stories from different countries and cultures? Both your culture and the American culture can inspire you and others.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's interesting. The thing about the microaggressions,
Mm,
yeah, sometimes depend on people's perspectives. So
mm,
all that they've seen is this group of people, that's all that they do. We don't
mm,
hold it against anyone. And the pressure to succeed. The pressure to succeed leads me to my next question, which was, were there any expectations from your parents that were difficult to balance with the lifestyle and culture of being
mhm.
in America?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. I would say definitely like with the career part, like I remember, I mean, I was fortunate. My mom was very much like you can do and be, whatever you want to be. But I do remember like in college, my mom, it was my freshman year, she was like, I really keep hearing a lot about like computers, and I really think you should like go, in that direction. And then, the American culture is also very individualistic. I want to be, what makes me happy. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that. Like that doesn't seem like, and granted, this is like 2000, so computers, internet wasn't like, huge. And I really felt called to like work with youth, go into the nonprofit. I remember my dad being like, non what? Like what is profit? Like what is that? Like you're not gonna make money. And so I like that kind of,
Non-profits.
yeah, like, but I really felt like this is what I was called to do. And I think it was because of how I was raised. Like I started volunteering with third graders through my sorority. Like we were teaching them to read at like in a low income area, and then in the mornings we would work with high school seniors, and they were maybe their first to graduate from high school. They didn't really know who they were, and I just, in a lot of ways, I just saw the trajectory of how you can get to, this grade level and not know your next steps. And for me that was a foreign concept because I was always taught like, oh yeah, America, this land of
Mm,
plenty,
mm, mm,
and like how education is like the most important thing. And so to be faced with that, like, in America, like zip code, race, all of that, gender, like all of that plays a lot into it. And so for me, I was like, it would have been very different for me had, my parents moved to a different zip code, right, in America, but I had been afforded a community that really, pushed education and community. And so for me, I wanted to really dedicate my life to like how do you make sure that people have opportunity and access, particularly young, young girls. So that was a bit of a a rub, but it's all turned out fine,
yes.
you know.
I was going to ask you that. How did you bring your father along?
Mm. Yeah, I think just seeing that, like, I was really passionate about it, like, because like right out of college, I went straight into grad school. I did a master's in public administration and nonprofit organizations. I started my own nonprofit as well. So I think seeing that like this was something that like I was, passionate about, and that there was a career, trajectory, and it didn't mean I was going to be poor. And that it was actually like helping people. I think that helped soften the blow.
Wow, yeah. So, um, but in August we had Professor Corte
Mm,
from Monroe County Community College, and we
mm,
talked a little bit about how immigrant parents, I mean, I've met so many, and they want their children to be lawyers,
yeah,
doctors,
doctors, computers.
eh, those traditional professions. But maybe there's a plug also for parents who are on this, that there are so many paths
Yeah,
to
yeah. There's
succeed
yes,
for our
exactly.
children to do well. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not one way. And like I do often think like, oh, maybe I should have listened to my mom and gone into computers, but I don't think I would have been that. I don't feel like that's what God was calling me to, to do. And so I'm grateful that, I still have very supportive, parents.
Yeah. And
Like,
having that fulfillment is not
yeah.
just about, a particular, but
Mm,
your motivation was to help people.
right,
And
exactly.
hint, hint, that working in a nonprofit does not mean that you're going to be poor.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. There's a lot of misconceptions.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Mhm.
Any other thing you want to do? How did it shape your future goals, relationship? I mean, you talked about the career. Is there anything else you want to say before we
Yeah,
move?
I would say relationships, right? I think that the whole like village concept, and I think the value around like connection and loyalty. Like I think those are huge principles like in the Ghanaian culture. And I think like that family, those values of family and community, like I am very fortunate that I have like great groups of like friends and great relationships. And I think that was rooted in that sense of community that like my mom created like growing up. And because like if you don't have family here, because my mom used to always say to myself and my siblings like, this is all you all have,
Mm.
so you better get along, and like each other, right? And so from a very early age, like you make friends family, right? Because you don't necessarily have your immediate family here. And so I
Yeah.
think that I have really rich relationships because I didn't necessarily have a biological auntie, down the
Mhm.
street. And now that I am an auntie, like that's my favorite thing to do because I didn't have that. And so like I love being able to show up for like my niece and nephew. So I think it's really shaped my relationships. And then in terms of like future goals, like I think, for me, like I want to create a legacy. Like I want my parents to know, like, their sacrifices like weren't in vain. And so bridging both cultures together to like inspire others to be, confident in who you are, like really bringing all pieces of like yourself to work. Because sometimes yeah, like when growing up and coming into culture, like I didn't necessarily feel I could breathe. Sometimes you feel like you have to be one way with these people, another way with
Yeah.
these people. But as I've gotten older, I'm just like, this is who I am. So I'm gonna bring, my fufu and light soup for lunch. Everyone's gonna smell like, like I don't, care anymore. So I think, yeah, bringing your, whole self to everything.
Bringing your whole self, your different identities. So let's speak before we get to the business. Let's speak to that a little bit because there are some young people who
Mhm.
join us and who are also looking for tips and resources.
Mhm.
How do they overcome them? Because you just said as you got older,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
don't have that. They are young now, right? They are
yeah.
beginning their careers. Some of
Mhm.
them may live at home and that the pressure, wanting to do well. So speak to them for a minute.
Yeah, I would say get it, and you talk about it in your book around like the relationships and networking, but I would say like getting a mentor, like that's so underrated. But I think that's one of the things that I did, and I think it's okay to have more than one. Like you can have one who, similar background to you, one completely different background to you, because that really helped me in my career because it helped me to like navigate. Because you also talked about negotiate. I didn't know. I always just thought like if someone gave you the salary, that's what you did. Like you just went with it. And it wasn't until I got a mentor, it's like, no, Stephanie, like you need to do this, this, and that. So, and then living at home, like I get like an American culture. It's like you go to school, you get a job, you go get your own place. Not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I know for me, like I was not married. Like before for me, it was like you would, work, you would stay at home, save your money, and then do your next step. And like being okay with that, right? And so I think there's aspects of our culture which is not a norm in Western culture, but I don't think it's a bad thing. And so I think the more you surround yourself, with like-minded individuals who share the same faith, the same values as you, it actually helps you like progress like in your life. And so all that to say, I think the best advice I would say is getting a mentor.
Yeah.
And that that shares those same values, and
Mhm.
that has more experience in other areas that you may fall short in.
Yeah, yeah. We will have a session on mentoring alone,
Yeah.
but thank you for bringing that up. If
Mhm.
you're a young person, even an adult, maybe I don't think anyone is old enough, not is too old to have a mentor.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you talked about you can have mentors who are like-minded,
Mhm.
but research has also shown that mixed race mentoring is
Yes.
really, really effective. And there's even something that is called reverse mentoring,
Mm.
which is I can be mentored by Gen Z.
Oh, I've
So
not heard
that's the
of
reverse mentoring. Normally a mentor is somebody who has gone through, who is older, blah, blah. No, there's reverse mentoring that has also been shown to be very,
Mhm.
very effective. And I think that especially for those of us who are first gen, second gen, if your setting, your community has just been your race or the people that your parents surrounded themselves with, I
Mhm.
think we all need to venture out to hear the different perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah, how to improve our businesses and the different spheres that we are in. So thank you for bringing that up. Now, I
Mhm.
know that this is one of your favorite things to talk about. You have a business. It's
Yes.
on the flyer.
Yes.
Steph is the owner of Yashik. We want
Yes.
to hear all the all the tips, the ideas, the startup, the challenges
Yeah.
about Yashik. And I would even love for you to tell us a little bit about the name. I'm sure you get that.
Yes. Yes.
But
Yes.
before you get to that, let me welcome everyone who is joining. I'm sorry I might not see you because of the setting that we are in. See you meaning it's we are just seeing I'm just seeing Steph right now. So thank you so much for joining us. Steph is the owner of Yashik. In a minute or two, we're going to get more into the business to hear her journey, what her challenges have been, and I think that we'll all benefit from her story. I want to also say that next week, November 2nd, we will have Miss Yetunde Olumide on
Ooh.
here. She's the CFO of the Metro, the DC Virginia Metro, Maryland DC Virginia, WMAT. I might be butchering it, but she'll be here next week. And the week after, you also don't want to miss that. We have Ruth, which is called, I call her Dr. Ruth, who'll be speaking about emotional intelligence, utilizing emotional intelligence to succeed in the workplace. So I just wanted to put in a plug. Steph,
Yes.
we are all ready. Tell us all about Yashik, the
Good.
name, what
Yes.
you do, how you got to this journey. You have all the time, and
Oh,
I
good.
might stop you here and there.
Okay. Yeah.
You can also talk about the inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Let's start with that. And yeah, no, I want to also, I see my mom and my twin sister join. So hi to them. Um,
Hi, mommy.
Um, but yeah, so Yashik, so the name is derived. So Ya, as you all know, is Thursday born. My dad is a Khan, he's a Kwapin, my mom is a Ga. So it's actually a mix of a couple things. So my older sister is Ya Abinawa, and then my twin, she's Aquili, I'm a Kwakwa. So it is a merge of our names. And then my nieces are also Ya, they're Thursday born, and my best friend is also Thursday born as well. So it just makes it all up. And it really birthed out of sisterhood, really a multitude of things. So I knew I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My mom was, so was my grandfather, and I really saw from an early age like how it can impact people. Because through entrepreneurship, my grandfather, started a school in Ghana. My mom always helped other women through it. And I had this idea with my sisters in 2005, but I was really scared to get started. And I also, was just going the traditional route of like you finish school, you get a job, and you work there. But the tug to do it was always there. And finally, in 2019, one of my friends, because I would always wear and let me back up. So it's a mission-driven West African inspired clothing and accessories brand. We work
Say that again.
oh yeah,
Say
mission.
that. Hold on 1 second, please.
Yeah.
Say that again, and
Mhm.
maybe we can put that in the chat. I'll write it
Oh
down.
yes,
And
yeah.
then two, please explain. Yeah, it's Ghanaian, right? For
Yes, yeah.
those,
So it's
yeah.
Ganyan. Yeah. So in the Akan tribe, you are named based off the day of the week. And so my older sister is Ya. And then as a twin, you have first girl twin and second born girl twin. And so my older twin is Aquili, which starts with an A, and I'm a Kwakwa for second
Mm.
twin, which starts with an A. So it's the initials of Ya, Aquili, and Aquaqua. And then of course Thursday born, my nieces, and my other best friend. So that's yeah. And then chic, it really just defines the aesthetic of the clothing. I love fashion clothing. And so I wanted to start something that number one bridges both of my, passions around fashion. And then I started my career out as a social worker, nonprofit executive. And so it is a mission-driven clothing and lifestyle brand. So we make West African inspired clothing in a more contemporary, modern way. So taking the traditional African wax print, making dresses, skirts, and accessories. So going back to this first generation, aspect where I'm able to really bridge both of that. And we're able to employ women in Ghana as our main dressmakers, and then using a percent to support like education and other youth initiatives. So it's a bridge, again, of both cultures and both passion around helping people and then fashion. But you talked about like getting started. And I think for me, the traditional way of like getting a job, going to work, making sure that, you have income. And so while I always wanted to do it, it was just this fear around like, well, what if it's not good enough? What if people don't like it? But I feel like when God gives you like a vision, he also gives you the provision. And it wasn't till I got later in my career where I really built the confidence to be like, you know what, I think I can do this. And it was always in me and it wasn't going to go away until I actually did it. And so we launched in 2021, which of course was around the global pandemic. But I just felt like, I have to try. And so that's why I always tell young people, like if something is in you, it's not just by chance. Like God, has, put that vision in you and you have to execute it. And that along the way, he's going to provide, the people to support you in that. And I had a friend who literally called me every Friday, who was holding me accountable. Like, what are you doing? Are you doing your business plan? My mom bought my first coaching sessions with someone who was specific in this field. And so like that was a huge investment. When I did like a little soft launch, my brothers, they bought, all of the items. So I think all that to say is, taking the first step. And then like God brings people into your life. Uncle Quasi helps me, with my accounting. But it's been great in that, it's a business that's been able to, support other people. But it's also something that's, brought great fulfillment and it's really helped, me, number one, trusting God, right? When he gives you a vision, but what it's been able to do for other people, I think is great. And it really represents women, who are bold in style and bold in purpose. As I shared before, someone who struggled with my own identity and confidence, I wanted a brand that really encouraged women to be bold in whatever it is that they felt that they were called to do.
Wow. So I like that you said you have to try. You
Yes.
just have to try and take the first step.
Hmm.
Then, as you were speaking, I could still hear the community. A friend would call you and check on you. Are you building your business plan? Mom paying for your coaching, your brothers, Kwesi, my husband, helping you with your accounting.
Mhm.
It takes a community. You didn't do it alone.
Mhm.
Now, you said even if you're afraid, just start.
Mhm.
So how did you just start? Just
Yeah, that's a good one. So it really actually originally started with my sisters and I. So we would meet like weekly to talk about it, but we slowly realized that we were like arguing and we wanted to keep our sisterhood. But like just doing strategy sessions, like my twin sister helps me with like all of the creative stuff. My older sister helps me with like the strategy. But really just putting pen to paper, taking all the ideas in your head and putting it out. So I started with, creating a business plan. So just doing basic research, getting on Google. I recommend SCORE. It's a national platform of retired business owners. They're pretty much every city. In Maryland, they have an office in Columbia, but I was able to get a mentor there that helped me with the
score.
initial, yeah, SCORE. Yes, I can't remember what it stands for, but SKORE.
Oh,
And they also have different templates, but it was just basic things of putting pen to paper and starting with that business plan and getting an accountability partner. So my friend getting a coach, she was specifically worked with startup businesses who want to get into the African print agency. But I can't say there was one moment where I was just like an epiphany. It was just like, you know what, Stephanie? Like this idea isn't going anywhere. And so like you can at least try, like take the first step. And as I took the first step, like doors just began to open. And that's why I was saying like when God gives you a vision, he gives the provision. And so I think part of it is like getting someone to hold you accountable and then
okay.
putting pen to paper. That really
Okay.
helps demystify because some things you're scared about, but then when you write it out, you're like, oh, well, I can talk to this person or I can talk to that person or, oh, there's a template for this. Sometimes your fears start to begin to demystify. And sometimes you
Mm.
just have to do it scared. I mean, there's that part of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, put pen to paper. There's
Mhm.
something about writing out what you want to do
Mhm.
and putting a page as the year is ending. You don't
Mhm.
want to wait till December 31st before you start making resolutions. The
Exactly.
year would have already started actually. So
Exactly.
start putting things to paper. We've been
Mhm.
hearing about visioning, vision boards,
Mhm.
putting your goals down. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that. And then you talked about business plan.
Yes.
So those of us who want to start a business,
Mhm.
first of all, you put the pen to paper, or yeah, pen
Mhm.
to paper. Then business plan. Steph talked about going to Google. If you don't have anything, Google can be a great resource, starting place to look
Mhm.
at what other people have done and
Mhm.
start that. And then she gave us a great resource called SCORE,
Mhm.
SKORE,
Mhm.
right?
I'm gonna put it in here. I think I put S. C.
SC, not
Sorry,
score.
like
Okay,
score like a
that you
goal.
said.
Yeah, yeah.
SC, okay.
Put it in
So
there.
score is a great resource.
Mhm.
Please go there, meet people, network. And then she talked about having an accountability partner. Um, I mean, I think she said it enough. She talked about community, strong community, but having an accountability partner, somebody will tell you, hey, you're slacking, you're on track, you know, and it's like having a mentor who can support you in this journey. She talked about having a coach in that specific area that you want to grow. I know that sometimes we'll say we don't have the money to do it, but there are also people who want to give back.
Yes.
Sometimes there's a need to invest, but if you are starting with no money, there are so many people out there who want to support. I don't know whether you want to speak to that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would say like there are people who want to like support you. Like I have another mentor who I just meet with like once a month and we kind of knock everything out. And I think now there is a huge push also to support entrepreneurs, particularly entrepreneurs of color. So I know like JP Morgan Chase has a free coaching program. Verizon, they have a coaching program as well. And I can share all of these. I have a list of them. Your local chamber of commerce, there's networking opportunities there as well. BGE has a grant program. There's another grant program through Hello Alice, where you kind of put like what your role is, and like what your focus is, excuse me, and it populates different grants that you would be eligible for. And then, of course, local city government. So there is funding out there. I wouldn't say like don't let money stop you. Not saying you don't
Mm.
need money, but don't let money stop you because there's money out there. And also just your personal savings. Like I started slowly like saving, putting money away, and that's how I was able to like self-fund. And we can't underestimate like, you know, business loans as well. I'm not very savvy in that, but that's an opportunity too. But I would not let money deter you from starting. And then your friends and family, like I said, like my sisters, my brothers, like they were my first customers. My mom paid for my, you know, coaching, like they invested in you, and your family, like they love you, they want to support you, your friends, they want to support you. So they will invest in your vision.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. If you are, I'm looking at Zoom because that's where I am broadcasting from, but there are some resources that Steph has
Yeah.
put in the chat. So Kwesi, if you can please copy them and put them in the Facebook for me, that would be great. www.score.org for resources. Thank you, Irene Pra. Irene said great stuff. I mean, you have given us step-by-step approach to starting. There's a question that I want to ask because and I want to ask rather than put out my own idea. The business, even letting people know about the business, what were the formal and the informal ways of,
Yeah. Good.
and then if you can also tell us where people can find Yashik, and I'll
Yes,
come to
great.
the
Yeah,
question.
good question. So I think marketing is, of course, one of the most challenging aspects of it. But I did a 6-month pre-launch. And so before I even launched, I started with collecting emails. So I created through MailChimp, which is free. I created a simple link to get people to sign up for my email letter. And so this is before I even actually launched any products, to really begin to like generate excitement. And so I said that I would start with the email subscription list, creating a social media account. And then I just did personal invites. I took a spreadsheet and I wrote down literally every single person I knew in life. And so I just blocked it off by like people from high school, people from church, people from my first job, my second job, people through leadership programs. So I just put them in different categories, and I just would take one day a week. I created a simple text with the link to sign up for the email subscriptions and to follow us on Instagram. And I just sent out personal invitations to every single person. And when I finished, it was close to like 250 people. So it was quite an extensive list, but you'd be surprised, like the people that you know, and like people want to support you in like the endeavors that you have. And through that, people will be like, oh, you should talk to this person, or you should talk to that person. So I would say starting out with an actual marketing plan that includes like like your email subscription lists, which I created a different series of emails of like it would go out every Thursday and it would have, different information as we would lead up to the actual time. So I would say starting with your personal network is great, and getting yourself out there through email or through social media.
Wow. This is, I feel like we need to have a class where you can give us the
Yeah, I'd
step-by-step
love to do that.
approach, and
Mhm.
we can just do some Facebook Lives, maybe 5 lessons, and
Mhm.
people, this is good stuff. Thank you, Steph. This is really, really good stuff. Now, also a question I was going to ask you, what inspired you to start your business?
Yes.
And what was your motivation? Same question.
Mhm.
And this question, two, on the 12th, 2 weeks ago, when Genevieve Prapra, my Kwanzaa is my secondary high school name, what the name we knew her. But when she came, she's the CEO of African Language Consultants LLC,
Mhm.
and languages from A to Z, over 2,000 languages that they provide service. And somebody asked a question about getting into the interpretation translation business, and she said, first examine your motivation,
Mhm.
or why do you want to why do you want to get into that? But I
Mhm.
think you've answered it. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit for those who just joined us about your motivation to start Yashik.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely it's impact. I think that's the hugest, excuse me, the huge aspect of it is like what it can, like what entrepreneurship can do. Yes, for yourself, right? But also for like your community. I think another aspect of it was going back to this whole thing of like community. When I thought about my friends, they were, some were homemakers, right? My sister's a teacher, my brother is an athletic trainer. Like all of these people in my life have these great jobs that are in service to like others. And they do it like I just happen to surround myself with like people who are really bold and really confident. And for such a long time, I didn't feel that way. And I'm like, man, like I know that it's clothing, right? But for me, we always say that like, clothes may not change the world, but the women who wear them will. And so
Mm.
it's like, how do we, create this community, this clothing brand where yes, it's about clothes, but it's fashion with an impact, right? We're able to work with, women, we're providing, jobs, and not from a charity standpoint, but we're really, supporting global entrepreneurship, right? And then, we're able to use some of that funding to support other initiatives. Like a good friend of mine has a dance studio in New York. We were able to do all the costumes for free. And so it's like as people are buying, like some of that money is also like helping other people. And so I think for me, it's fashion with an impact, right? And it's lifestyle, right? It's that flexibility to be able to, have a creative idea and be able to put it out. And being able to like work with family. Like my niece is my intern. My nephew joined our advisory board and he's 10, right? And my sister, my mom, my brother-in-law, like they're all on this advisory team, one of my, other best friends, right? So I think the motivation is just around like community and impact.
Wow. Fashion with impact.
Mhm.
If you don't know Steph, I call her Steph. When
Mhm.
you see her, I mean, nobody has to speak. Fashion with impact. That is so, so true. There was something that you said that I would, if you remember to repeat it, it said, your clothing may not
Oh,
change
yeah.
you.
Yeah, it's not my quote. I found it. But it
Okay.
says, clothes may not change the world, but the women who wear them will. And when I think, yeah, about the brand, I'm like, yeah, like it is because most of my customers in the beginning were my, friends and family, and they are women who are, some's a therapist, right? One's teacher, one's a, homemaker. Like they're all doing incredible things like in community. And like when people wear Yashik, like I want them, you know, when you look good, you feel good, right? So I want them to feel good, feel like dressed really nicely. Like friends who are interior designers, when they go do their consultants, like they look good in like their everyday, you know, events or special events. So yeah, clothes may not change the world, but the women who wear them will.
Goes to the woman who. So I assume that your clothing are just for women.
So right now they are, but we are gonna get to men. My brothers are always like, when are the men men's line coming? But we're gonna get there. I'm not sure when, but right now, yes, it's just women.
Good, good. Elsie, are there any comments?
Yes, let me take a look real quick. Alrighty. Miss Eunice said, surround yourself with like-minded people and people who share your values. She also said, when God gives you a vision, he also gives you the provision. And yeah, that's all we have so far.
Okay, very good. Then I see one. Irene Pratt says, well done, Steph. Keep soaring. Well done, well done. I'm learning some stuff and I'm going to actually come to you for this the marketing thing, the step-by-step approach. So in my book, for those of you who are joining, as you all well, not as you all know, because there are some new people, these conversations are based on my book, Breaking Through the Immigrant's Handbook for Thriving in the American Workplace. Really, really, the concepts discussed in the book apply to various workplaces in life and in entrepreneurship, as obvious, it's obvious today. So there's the conversation is based on the book. So Steph, my question to you is, what is your favorite topic or chapter, and why does it resonate with you?
Yeah, so it was chapter 2. So that was a chapter that really talked about confidence. And like, you know, I said before with the whole like identity thing, but you talked about being confident in your own skin, right? And I think for me that hit home because I think once you're confident in like who you are, where you're from, what you bring to the table, like it sounds cliche, but it does make you like unstoppable, right? And so I think for me, like it just resonates because for a long time, like I said, it took a long time to get to that point where like I am enough and like I bring all these, you know, great things to the table. And so I felt like that was such a critical like part in the book because you know, whatever like you believe that you are, that's what, you know, so a man believes in his heart, so is he. Like what you believe is like what you become. And if you're not confident in yourself and who you are, it just makes the journey that much harder. So I think that that confidence piece is huge because it always, you know, always tell kids like, oh, dream big, but that is true. Like you have to aspire, you know, to
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
But if you
yeah,
don't have that, the basis, the foundation is confidence, right? I
yeah,
think that's huge.
yeah. And you sure do need it, especially in this business that you are in.
Oh yes.
If you have read the book, you know I talk about Ahunzepa in Kasa is a proverb in one of the Ghanaian languages, which means quality beats don't make noise
Mm,
or don't speak about, don't brag. Basically, it's like you shouldn't be talking about your own accomplishments,
right.
which put a lot of immigrants, when you interview folks, even at school, they can't speak about themselves, things that they've accomplished.
Right.
And so learning to find that humility, talking about your accomplishments is not being braggadocious, braggadocious is that a word, but being able to find that balance of sharing your accomplishments, how you got there, and bringing others along. And so, for instance, your clothing business, thank you for all the marketing tips that you've shared. You are able to talk about the mission and how it's supporting other women, being confident in your own skin, being confident in the things that you have accomplished, being confident in the things that you're working through so that it helps others. So thank you very much for sharing that chapter. I also like that. Any parting words? So
Yeah.
our conversation, just based on who you are, first gen, a woman, an entrepreneur, younger people, yeah, just some parting words, and then I think we'll come to a close.
Yeah, no, good question. I actually just wanted to close because I talked about like the confidence thing, the identity thing, like the fear. I heard a really great quote last week. Actually, Yashik was in Canada. It was our first kind of global marketplace. And one of the panelists talked about or shared this quote, which I think is so powerful when we think about vision and we think about not being afraid, but it's by Andre Lord. And it says, when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid. So I would just close, and I'll put it in the chat. I would just close with saying that, like, use everything that you have, like God has given you these talents, these gifts, these experiences, which all like encompass your purpose. And that like you can't be, you can't do it, in fear, and that, God hasn't given us the spirit, of fear.
Yeah.
And so being to get that vision and knowing that God is with you every step of the way, because you've been born with purpose.
Wow. Thank you all. I don't know if there are no comments. Help me to thank Stephanie. The last quote by Andre Lord, yeah.
Yes,
It's when
yes.
I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I'm afraid. Powerful. Thank you, Stephanie, so much for coming. Thank you for sharing your journey. Mom, if you're on, thank you. And Steph shared there, and I don't want to butcher that.
Oh, good, better, best.
Yes, can you please repeat that, because I love it so
Yeah.
much.
Yes, good, better, best. Never let us rest until our good is our better and our better is our best.
Thank you. We all love that code. And thank
Yeah.
you all so much for joining us. It's been a very empowering for me, very empowering. It's very informative session with Stephanie Amponsa, owner of Yashik.
Yes, I'm
You
gonna
can
put it in
find
the chat.
Yashik on
Mhm.
yashik.com, I believe.
Yes.
Let's support our sister, our
And
friend, our
follow
auntie.
us. Shameless plug. I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to get to 1,000 followers. So I'm gonna put my Instagram in here as well.
She'll put her Instagram there as well. And please, let's follow her, grow her business. Thank you all for joining. And we will see you actually next week with Yetunde Olumide. And it's interesting you talked about said there's a quote actually on LinkedIn in one of her, it says that she says that dream big, start scared, or something like that. She will be here to share her journey from where she was to become the CFO, Chief Financial Officer. So we'll have her, and the week after will be emotional intelligence with Dr. Ruth, utilizing emotional intelligence to succeed in the workplace will be her topic. Thank you all. Thank you. And we will see you again next week and the week after. And I think that will be the end for the year. So Steph, thank you very much. Let's all visit Yashik, and we will continue this conversation someday, somewhere. And probably, like I suggested, maybe you and I can go on Facebook to do the step-by-step approach to
Yes, I'd love
starting
that.
a business.
I'd love
I love that too. Thank you all.